They usually live alone, hiding out in burrows on the seabed, but they are also agile swimmers. The largest species can grow to 35 centimeters in length. Their name is inspired by their close resemblance to true shrimps and the terrestrial praying mantis. The scientists use a light net to trawl for mantis shrimps just above the seabed. The sandy bottom is studded with strange mounds. Could these be mantis shrimp burrows? Manatees are large enough to be seen and avoided. Giant, slow, and gentle. They couldn't be more different to the mantis shrimps the team is searching for. These nutrient-rich waters are also home to a wealth of other marine life. A shoal of almaco jack look out for small fish to eat, while bottlenose dolphins use their sonar to home in on prey hidden in the sand. Jennifer and her team are relying slightly more on luck to locate the mantis shrimps. In the net's haul, the team find what they were looking for.
We found one of the two main types of mantis shrimp, a spherer. Sadly, a dead specimen, but that meant it was safe for Jennifer to show me the weapons that it uses to capture its prey. This shrimp has highly extendable front claws that are as sharp as a flip knife. No wonder mantis shrimps are known to many as being extremely hard to handle.
In nearby Tarpon Springs, Natalie meets a local fisherman who's had more close encounters with mantis shrimps than he cares to remember.
Are you ready? Hi, I'm Natalie.
The advice usually given to divers is to steer clear of a creature nicknamed the thumb splitter. But what happens when they end up on the deck of your boat?
You ever catch any mantis shrimp in your nets?
Yeah, we get them. After you drag the bottom up and down a few times, it stirs it up, and they come up on the bottom to eat, and then we catch them up and we dump them on the back deck, and you have to be real careful picking through them, because they'll pop you in the hands, they'll pop your fingers actually, they'll pop you with their tail, and their tails are real sharp when they're small, and they'll break off in your finger and get infected, so you have to be real careful picking through them.
Mantis shrimps have certainly earned themselves a tough reputation. At the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, USA, there's one scientist who knows all about their formidable weapons. Sheila Patek leads a team of scientists devoted to studying mantis shrimps.
Mantis shrimp are fascinating, and so at so many levels, it's hard to just tell you one thing about them. If you just look at them in a tank or out in a field, the first thing you notice are these amazing eyeballs that are constantly zipping around and switching around, and that's one area that people spend a lot of time researching. The other aspect which immediately will attract your attention are their powerful appendages. They're called raptorial appendages, and they use them to capture prey. And it's dramatic, it's so fast, that it just begs the question of how are they physically able to generate these kinds of speeds and movements?
Sheila's study focuses on the weapons of the second type of mantis shrimp, smashers.
The mantis shrimp's appendage is actually a mouth part. It's not a leg. It's not on the part of walking legs. So this is actually a blown-up, real mantis shrimp's appendage. And here's the hammer, and there's even wear that you can feel along the surface from having had a pretty rough life, and a big chip is taken out of the middle there from something it hit. So that's the hammer that strikes like this, and it can also open up and stab. And that's actually, to me, the scariest part. But the appendage, this is incredibly sharp and can hurt a lot. With their many formidable-looking weapons, mantis shrimps are a bit like a living Swiss Army knife. To find out more about how they live, I traveled to Berkeley, California to meet Roy Caldwell, a scientist who's been studying their behavior for over 40 years.
Roy keeps several species of mantis shrimp in his lab. All are active predators of other crustaceans, mollusks, and fish. To get a closer look at their weaponry, Roy uses a dental mirror to tease a shrimp out of its burrow. Perhaps confused by its own reflection, the shrimp goes on the attack.
Very colorful.
Roy explains that this aggression is typical for these feisty hunters. The usual tactic of smashers is to bludgeon their opponent into submission. Their club-like weapon can crack a snail's shell or punch through the armor of a crab. But mantis shrimps are also highly territorial and quite happy to use their weapons on each other. A large whelk shell is a home worth fighting for. In one of the tanks, an uneasy standoff has developed. The shrimps have tough tail plates that can deflect and absorb blows, but the rest of their bodies are quite soft. Unlike many animals that spar, fights between mantis shrimps can have deadly consequences. Competition for burrows is a regular part of their life in the wild. Intimidating displays of power are not enough on their own. Evictions must be enforced. The fight concludes out of sight. Territorial battles are not the only example of extreme aggression Roy has witnessed in mantis shrimps. The blue-ringed octopus is one of the most venomous creatures in the ocean. A single bite can paralyze its prey, but this mantis shrimp decided its best defense was to attack. Using its hammer-like claws, it pounded the octopus to a pulp, and the would-be predator became the prey.
Pound on it for several minutes and then eventually it ate it. Snappod instantly attacked the blue ring, probably killed it in the first couple of strikes.
Roy's studies have convinced him that much of their behavior is due to their incredible vision.
They will,
Mantis shrimps have the most advanced eyesight in the animal kingdom.
right now. There are three possibilities.
Out on stalks, the eyes can move independently to focus in different directions and track both predators and prey. Their eyes are built from thousands of individual lenses that outperform our own eyesight in a startling number of ways. 3 pupil-like centers of vision in each eye give mantis shrimps incredible depth of vision. They can detect light ranging from infrared to ultraviolet and can see 10 times as many colors as we can. They are also the only animal known to detect a rare corkscrewed form of light wave called circular polarized light. It's thought this allows mantis shrimps to communicate with each other without attracting attention from predators. By reflecting the polarized light off parts of their body, they can send these secret signals. The reflective areas can be different in males and females, suggesting the system helps with their sex lives. This pair, for once, don't seem interested in fighting. Under an ultraviolet bulb, more complex markings are revealed. For mantis shrimps, reading the right signs is critical to successful courtship. The first job is to convince their mate that it's safe to approach. Some species are highly promiscuous, while others can form monogamous bonds that can last for 20 years. Once trust is established, mating can finally take place. When the female's eggs have been fertilized, she will guard them herself until they hatch. Fantastic vision doesn't only help mantis shrimps become attracted to the opposite sex, it's also critical to another vital survival strategy: using their terrifying weaponry with ninja-like precision.
Having seen such fascinating behavior in Roy's lab, I was keen to see how these feisty shrimps use their skills to survive in the wild. My next stop was Phuket, on the west coast of Thailand, to meet up with an old friend who shares my fascination with mantis shrimps.
Thailand is one of the world's greatest diving locations, renowned for crystal clear waters and beautiful coral reefs. Klaus Orlich will be Natalie's guide. He's dived these waters for 20 years and is familiar with even their most bizarre inhabitants. The crew of the Poseidon prepares to take Natalie to some remote dive locations where hopefully there will be plenty of mantis shrimps. The garland of flowers will bring them safety and luck as they leave Phuket to head out into the Andaman Sea. They're heading for the Similan Islands, about 90 kilometers northwest of Phuket. The waters around Koh Similan, the largest of the islands, were declared a marine park in 1982. The sea is incredibly clear. Underwater visibility here can reach 40 meters. The reef wall is teeming with life, but Natalie and Klaus are heading for the seabed. Sponges can grow to huge sizes in these nutrient-rich waters. These hollow colonies provide hideouts for many creatures. A pair of lionfish use them as cover to pounce on unwitting prey. The soft sediments of the reef floor offer the best habitat for burrowing animals. Garden eels use it to sink from sight. Will Klaus and Natalie find that the mantis shrimps are also hidden away? Finally, they spot a telltale opening in the coral rubble. The shrimps build their fortresses in the loose substrate. It means their backs are covered, but these protective bunkers are so highly prized there can be many disputes over ownership, as Natalie witnessed in Roy's lab. The divers soon spot other evidence of mantis shrimps in the area. This tough-looking individual is cleaning up after a fight. Natalie and Klaus have missed the action, but there's plenty of incriminating evidence left lying around. It looks like this mantis shrimp dealt with its rival very effectively. Natalie and Klaus aren't the only ones that might be looking for mantis shrimps on this reef. White-tipped reef sharks and stingrays both hunt crustaceans. For now, the stingrays seem preoccupied with the cleaning services of tiny fish that remove their parasites. But a zebra shark approaches with more purpose. It too loves nothing better than a crunchy crustacean. With a supple body and a long, flexible tail, this shark is the perfect reef predator, purpose-built to twist and turn amongst the nooks and crannies of the coral. Mantis shrimps must run for cover. Zebra sharks can grow to 2.5 meters. They have an unusual method of extracting their prey from the reef. Once it's sniffed out the location of its victim, the shark's small mouth can suck it up like a vacuum cleaner. Mantis shrimps in their burrows might not be as safe as they suppose.
As juveniles, these sharks camouflage
flashed stripes, just like their namesake, the zebra. But by the time they reach adulthood, they have developed a beautiful spotted coat that has earned them a new name amongst local people, the leopard shark. The predators were a great distraction, but it meant that the mantis shrimps could not be tempted out for more than the briefest moment.
Ninja-like speed is a key weapon of the mantis shrimp, whether used for defense or attack. To find out just how fast they are, Natalie will need to see them in more controlled conditions. Her next stop is Amherst, Massachusetts, to visit Sheila Patek in her lab. Sheila heads a team of scientists who specialize in studying the mantis shrimp's strike. They claim to have found evidence to prove the mantis shrimp's credentials as a hard-hitting crustacean. In the lab's aquarium, Sheila's study subjects are kept in solitary confinement. It's the only option to avoid territorial punch-ups. The first thing Natalie wants to see is just how fast the mantis shrimp can deploy its weapon.
The strike happens so quickly in the wild you can hardly see it. How do you measure the speed?
We measure the speed of the strike with this amazing high-speed video camera. So if you just took a regular speed video camera, it films at about 30, maybe 60 frames per second. This camera can film over 200,000 frames per second.
Wow.
So we basically have to film at really, really, really high rates so then we can slow it down enough to actually see what's happening.
Okay.
With the camera set, a net handle is used to draw the shrimp's attention.
Just take the handle and put it right in front of the animal.
Okay.
And I'll film it while you do it.
Okay.
And then we'll be able to slow it down and take a look. So you can open up the tank and just put it right in front.
Are you
And
ready?
the camera's rolling. We're going to film it around 10,000 frames per second.
Okay.
And I'll click when it strikes. Very nice.
By slowing down the footage and measuring the distance that the mantis shrimp covered, the speed of the strike can be calculated.
We'll just step through this frame by frame. You can see the appendages coming out, striking the net handle.
In slow motion, every detail of the strike is suddenly clear.
How fast was that?
This one was really impressive. The whole strike was completed in 1 millisecond. Extremely fast.
Using the slowed down footage, Sheila has calculated astonishing strike speeds. Mantis shrimps can fire out their weapons at over 20 meters per second. It's one of the fastest forms of acceleration in the animal kingdom.
What's faster than that? Not much is faster than that. Let's say you're going for a car ride and you're trying to get up to 20 meters per second or 50 miles per hour. And you can imagine being on the on-ramp to a highway. And it takes a while, right? You have your foot on the pedal and you're pushing it. It takes many, many seconds to get to that speed. Well, the mantis shrimp gets to that speed in 2 milliseconds. I mean, 2 milliseconds is faster, far faster than the blink of an eye. So that's just like going from 0 to really fast, faster than you can even process.
The acceleration is equivalent to a bullet leaving a gun. But a bullet only has to travel through air, not water.
If you imagine that, you use a lot of force just walking through water, and the animal strikes this fast in the water, that's incredible.
In Thailand, Natalie witnessed the end product of this speed in a mantis shrimp fight over territory. A challenger is approaching a homeowner's burrow, but is seen off with some well-placed punches. A single clean shot to the body could settle the dispute. It's all over, and the trespasser is fatally wounded. But how strong was that punch?
So one of the things we can do here in the lab is actually measure the strike forces with this little sensor. It's called a load cell or a force sensor. And inside is a little crystal that has electricity running through it. And when you squeeze it, it tells how much force is being produced.
Okay.
You want to give it a try?
Absolutely. I'll just rub some of the shrimp on here. Make it taste good. Okay, and we're using this one here?
Yep.
Okay.
Give that one a try.
All right, thank you.
And you can just put it right down in front of it. It'll smell the shrimp smell.
Okay.
Okay, so now it's investigating it. So it touches it with its antennules, starting to get revved up, and now you can see the appendages coiling up.
Yeah.
And then bam,
Oh
there
my
you
gosh,
go.
yes.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it did strike it. That was a good strike.
Yeah, that was
Did you
awesome.
actually hear it?
Yeah.
And when we stuck the load cell in the tank, the animal immediately started striking. And it was very surprising to me in a sense because I'd seen that in the wild, but never felt it. And he actually was able to push back the load cell quite a bit. And it's a pretty heavy piece of metal. So that took me back a little bit, I have to say.
The data recorded by the load cell can be analyzed. It reveals that the mantis shrimp is a master of the short, sharp shock.
One of the hallmarks of the mantis shrimp's strike is that it's very, very high peak, but it occurs over a very short period of time. And so when you look at the output on the computer, what you see are these really tight peaks over microsecond timescales. This is the output that we get from the force sensor. This graph shows you the time course of the strike, and on this axis we have force. This is the force that they're producing. In this case, a fairly moderate force peak, 200 newtons, about 50 pounds.
200 newtons of force is the same pressure as the bite of some sharks. But compared to some other strikes Sheila has recorded, Natalie's shrimp is a bit of a lightweight.
From a typical mantis shrimp, we measure forces that are on the order of 1,500 newtons or 300 pounds force. This animal is about 40 grams, and that means it's generating force that's thousands of times its body weight. This is one of the highest peak forces produced by any animal that's ever been measured.
It takes humans years of practice to get close to replicating this action.
And many people who do karate talk about storing up energy and releasing it over a very short time period, and they're able to break boards and so forth, doing this approach. And it's in some ways that's analogous to the mantis shrimp, where you are generating a high peak force over a short time period to fracture something.
The mantis shrimp's awesome power can hole a crab's shell with a single strike. Potential predators can also be on the receiving end. And that includes us.
The best policy with mantis shrimp is to not put your hands anywhere near them, because they are really vicious animals. I have been hammered by a shrimp. It's very painful. It almost feels like the sting of a bee, but without the stinger, and you get a little red welt. But far worse is when they decide to stab you. It's just like someone putting a sewing needle right through your finger. It's awful. So the best thing to do is just to keep your hands out of the tank.
It makes me realize what a risk Klaus took in Thailand. To coax this Spira out of its burrow, he used his finger. Spira's sharp appendages can be just as lethal as the smashers. Fortunately, Klaus has had years of experience, but this is not something to try at home.
Mantis shrimps have one of the fastest movements in the animal kingdom, and the power to deliver a blow 1,000 times their own body weight. But just how do these reef ninjas generate this pulverizing power? Sheila and her colleagues are investigating the source of this massive burst of energy.
One of the most fascinating things about studying these incredibly high-powered organisms is to figure out where they're storing all this elastic energy. Muscles just can't do these kind of fast movements. Somehow, this energy has to be stored in advance and then released powerfully all of a sudden. Mantis shrimp make use of this sort of general principle. It's called power amplification. It's what we use in crossbows and bows and arrows, where your arm muscle slowly stores up elastic energy in the system, and your hands or a latch releases it very quickly. This is exactly what mantis shrimp are doing.
To find out how much energy the mantis shrimp can store, Sheila's student, Mike Rosario, has designed an experiment.
So what we can do, basically, if we think of the appendage as sort of a bow and arrow, we can sort of compress this appendage, squeeze it in this way, vertically, and measure how much force it takes to fully compress that spring.
So to fully pull back that
The shrimp's claw is loaded into a materials testing machine. A wire threaded through it acts as the mantis shrimp's muscle.
And how long will this take? A second? Or?
The entire compression?
Yeah.
Oh, it takes a little bit less than a second.
Okay, alright, so I really have to look closely.
Right, you have to pay really, really close attention.
Okay. Oh yeah. You see that? Well, yeah, you see that. Wow.
It's really, really subtle.
Yeah.
The amount of force stored can now be calculated.
So if you actually just look at this graph and you locate the area where you see the highest amount of force, what you see is how much force it takes to contract the spring fully, or how much it takes to pull the bow back. And for some animals, that's over 30 newtons, which is really high for an animal this size.
30 newtons is the equivalent of us lifting 3 kilograms. It's a massive amount of potential energy to be stored by a creature that itself may only weigh 30 grams. To find out how the shrimp does it, Sheila's team have recreated the appendage in virtual reality.
This model is created from a micro CT scan, which is sort of, the CT scan that you might get at a hospital to look inside your body.
This 3D image of the mantis shrimp's appendage can also be animated to reveal the secrets of the structure.
So what we have here is a three-dimensional representation of the structure. And what's really cool about it is we can animate it and deform the structure.
As the model flexes and bends, areas of high energy are highlighted.
What do those colored areas mean?
So if you look really closely here, areas that are blue have low energy storage, but areas that show up as green and red and yellow and just these little areas in here, those are where we calculated very high energy storage. So here we can sort of identify the different parts of the structure that could act as springs.
What Sheila's team have discovered is that the spring-loaded power relies on two special areas of the appendage.
The spring system in mantis shrimp is this very integrated outer skeleton structure. It consists of a saddle that's like the saddle on a horse, and a thick sort of tight strip of exoskeleton that connects to it. And when that big muscle contracts, the whole thing compresses and prepares to strike, and then it releases. And the strip is like a metal ruler. You could imagine pulling it at one end and it slams down like this. That releases a tremendous amount of elastic energy.
Under the microscope, the distinctive saddle-shaped part of the system can be clearly identified. It's key to the operation of the ninja shrimp's weapon, but not only for the energy it can release.
When they prepare to strike, it curls up into a tight curve, and when they release the appendage, it opens up, flattens out suddenly.
This special structure helps to spread the load as the appendage is wound up for the strike. But mantis shrimps are not the only ones to discover the load-bearing properties of this structure. Being both light and strong, architects have found it to be the ideal shape for the roofs of many large buildings, such as this Olympic velodrome. Sheila's investigation had revealed the ingenious design of the ninja shrimp's weapon, but there were strange anomalies in the data. Each time the shrimp struck the force cell, more than one impact was registered. The slowed-down images contained another surprise, a split-second flash of light at the moment of impact. What could explain these strange events?
What we saw was really amazing. There was a formation of a vapor bubble in between the appendage and the snail, or whatever it's hitting. And there's a bubble that forms in the water. This bubble is called a cavitation bubble, and it's formed where you get very, very low pressure, where literally the water molecules are pulled away from each other to form a vapor bubble.
When the bubble collapses or cavitates, it results in an explosion of energy.
When it collapses, it emits heat, light, and sound, and when I say heat, I mean like 7,000 degrees Celsius, similar to the heat on the surface of the sun. It emits a very loud burst of noise, which we can actually hear, and then it emits light. It literally emits light, so it's a tremendously energetic event.
This massive release of energy at the moment of impact acts like a phantom punch to help stun the prey. A secret weapon for the mantis shrimp that's a source of misery for many boat owners. Metal boat propellers spinning fast through the water also create cavitation bubbles. Over time, the metal propeller blisters and eventually is worn away. The ninja shrimp faces the same problem. The more it uses its weapon, the faster it's worn out, or so you would think.
Mantis shrimp have something that engineers and boat owners don't have. Mantis shrimp can regenerate their own body parts, and they can also shed and regrow their exoskeleton. So on a regular basis, they just shed their whole exoskeleton, and then they have a nice, fresh new hammer ready to go.
While their new armor hardens, the soft-bodied shrimp must fall back on its awesome reputation.
Mantis shrimp have developed one of the classic examples that we often turn to in biology of bluffing. Once they get into this time period of molting, when their bodies really are too soft, their muscles atrophy, they actually cannot strike. They cannot use these appendages during that time period. They pretend. So you come up and you see them going like this and showing off while they're strike, but actually they can't strike.
When the molt is complete, the ninja shrimp will be both bigger and stronger. It seems like a perfect design, but at Sheila's lab, the story doesn't end here. The discovery of the mantis shrimp's secret weapon begs the biggest questions of all. Just how did the ninja shrimp evolve a weapon that produces cavitation, and can they control its destructive power? Engineer Suzanne Cox has designed an experiment to create cavitation in controlled conditions.
We've built a model that has the same dimensions as a mantis shrimp. It has a spring that's similar to a mantis shrimp, and we can load it up just like a mantis shrimp does, and we can release it.
The model arm moves through the water at 80 kilometers an hour, the same speed as a real mantis shrimp strike. The blunt metal bar produces a huge amount of cavitation. It's a simple-looking experiment, but one that might finally reveal the secret of the ninja shrimp's invisible weapon.
We have the shape and the size of the appendage, we have the spring, how stiff it is, and we can vary how fast that model is moving through the water. And if we can change each one of those little pieces, we can test what's necessary for cavitation. When does it appear? When does it disappear? And can mantis shrimp potentially even control where they direct it and how they use it?
Sheila and her team hope that their research will lead them to understand the very origins of the mantis shrimp's incredible design.
These animals have been on the planet for over 200 million years. There's been a tremendous amount of evolutionary time to make use of and to control this incredible fluid dynamic phenomenon through a simple mechanical model. We can start to understand how the system has evolved and piece together the amazing history of a group of organisms that can generate some of the highest peak forces and highest speeds of any measured animal on the planet.
Whether through accident or by design, mantis shrimps have at their disposal a sensational and devastating weapon. Aggression and fighting is essential to their survival, but in Thailand, I was pleased that I also managed to witness a slightly different side to their nature.
Natalie and Klaus chose a final night dive to try and see mantis shrimp behavior after dark. Night diving can be dangerous. In the dark, you can't always see which predators are around you. The reef takes on a different atmosphere at night. This resting turtle is disturbed by the divers' torches and moves off as they approach. A clownfish tries to bury itself in an anemone